The cross is not an ornament, not a charm, not a token of culture or tradition. It is the center of eternity, the dividing line between death and life, between the old creation and the new. But we have too often reduced it to a decoration, a symbol hung on walls and worn on necks. The cross was never meant to be admired from a distance. It was meant to be entered. When Christ gave himself upon the cross, he wasn't offering us a theory or a philosophy. He was offering an invitation, not just to believe in what he did, but to join our lives to it. If anyone would come after me, he said, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me. That was not metaphor, that was destiny. The cross is not a place you visit. It's the place you live. To join your life to Christ's sacrifice means more than going to church, more than praying prayers, more than moral living. It means to be crucified with him. Paul didn't say, I think about the cross. He said, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live. He didn't say, I admire his sacrifice. He said, I bear on my body the marks of the Lord Jesus. This is the mystery of the kingdom, that life only comes through death. That joy is found on the other side of surrender. That glory begins at the altar. To join your life to Christ's sacrifice is to let the cross cut through every layer of your being. It separates soul from spirit, joints from marrow. It lays bare the motives, the pride, the idols we've built. It confronts every place where self still reigns, your ambitions, your plans, your reputation, your rights. It does not ask for modification. It demands crucifixion. But here is the paradox. Only what is crucified can live again. Only what is laid down can be lifted up. The cross does not end in death. It ends in resurrection. But you cannot have the resurrection unless you pass through the death. You cannot share in his life if you do not also share in his sacrifice, and so many stop short. They want the blessing without the breaking, the crown without the cross, the spirit without surrender. But there is no other way. The narrow road passes through Calvary. There is no shortcut around the altar. If you will follow him, you must walk where he walked through Gethsemane, through the betrayal, through the garden, through the nails. Not because your sacrifice saves, but because it joins you to his. This is not a message of pain. It is a message of freedom. For when your life is nailed to the cross with Christ, sin loses its grip. Fear has no more power. The world's seductions grow dim. You are no longer your own. You were bought with a price, and because you have died with him, you will also live with him. Because you have been buried with him, you will be raised in glory. The cross is the gateway to everything God has for you. Not just heaven after death, but heaven breaking into your life now. So do not stand at a distance. Don't admire what you are called to enter. Walk up the hill, lay your life down, bind your dreams to the altar, join your life to his sacrifice. And you will find that in dying you live, in surrender you overcome, in weakness you receive power. In the cross you discover your true life, for the cross is not the end, it is the beginning, it is the place where everything changes. It is where you lose what cannot last and gain what cannot be taken. It is the call to follow, not in comfort, but in glory. The sacrifice of Christ was not merely an event in history. It is a continual reality that transcends time. To join your life to that sacrifice is to live in communion with what was finished on Calvary, yet continues to bear fruit in your soul daily. The blood that was shed once and for all still speaks. It speaks better things than the blood of Abel. It speaks mercy, redemption, cleansing, and covenant. But it also speaks calling. It speaks a divine invitation. Come and be made one with the sacrifice. Let your life no longer be your own, but a vessel of the eternal exchange. Your sin for his righteousness, your weakness for his strength, your death for his life. This kind of union with Christ means that you no longer view his sacrifice as something done merely for you, but something that transforms you from within. You begin to live not from the flesh, but from the Spirit, because the old man has been crucified with him. You do not make room for sin, you make war on it. You do not excuse the old ways, you bury them at the foot of the cross. His sacrifice becomes your separation, not only from judgment, but from the world, from compromise, from every unclean thing that once held you bound. When you join your life to Christ's sacrifice, you become a living sacrifice yourself. That is the calling of the redeemed, not to offer bulls or goats or ritual offerings, but to offer up your body, your thoughts, your desires, your time, your talents, as a holy and acceptable offering to God. And this is not something done once. It is done daily. Every day you rise and place your life again on the altar. Every day you choose to die to yourself, not out of despair, but out of devotion. You lay down bitterness and pick up forgiveness. You lay down anxiety and pick up trust. You lay down your crown and pick up the cross. There is a divine exchange in this act of joining. You begin to partake in the sufferings of Christ, not just in persecution, but in burden, in intercession, in the pain of carrying his heart for the lost. Your heart begins to break for what breaks his. You begin to carry the fire of heaven within you, and it burns away the dross of this world. You are no longer satisfied with shallow things. The things of this world grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. You walk differently. You love differently. You speak with the weight of one who has been with the crucified one. Joining your life to Christ's sacrifice also means joining in his purpose. He died not only to save, but to send. You cannot live near the cross without hearing the call to go to the poor, the broken, the blind, the captives. You begin to live for something greater than yourself. His mission becomes your mission. You begin to see that every moment, every breath, is an opportunity to reflect the love that was poured out on Calvary. You become a vessel of that love, not because you are perfect, but because you are surrendered. And yet, even in this surrender, there is joy. The world sees death, but you see resurrection. The world sees loss, but you see gain. The more you pour out your life, the more he fills it. The more you give up, the more you receive. His grace flows not to the proud, but to the broken, not to the self-sufficient, but to the surrendered. And in the surrender, you find the deepest rest. For the burden of the cross is heavy only to the flesh, but to the spirit it is life and peace. To join your life to Christ's sacrifice is the highest calling, the greatest mystery, and the most glorious transformation. It is not the path of comfort, but of communion, not the path of self, but of surrender. And it is there, at the place of death, that true life begins when you join your life to Christ's sacrifice. You are not only embracing salvation, but entering into a divine exchange where death gives way to life, and surrender becomes the doorway to true power. This union is not passive. It is a transformation that rewrites the very fabric of your identity. You are no longer defined by your past, by your failures, or even your strengths. You are defined by the cross. Your worth is no longer based on what you've done, but on what he did. Your name is now written not in ink, but in blood, the blood of the Lamb that speaks on your behalf day and night before the throne. This connection to Christ's sacrifice is not merely theological, it is intensely personal. The wounds on his hands become the healing of your soul. The crown of thorns becomes the breaking of your pride. The stripes on his back become the release of your bondage. And as you walk deeper into that mystery, you begin to understand that his suffering was not just substitution, it was invitation. He suffered not only for you, but with you, and now he bids you walk the narrow path with him, carrying the cross, not of condemnation, but of calling. That calling will take you into the wilderness at times. It will strip you of things you once depended on. You will find that the closer you come to the cross, the more the things of this world lose their shine. Popularity begins to mean less. The applause of men fades. The cravings of the flesh weaken. And in that stripping, you discover something eternal, that Christ is enough. When all is taken and Christ remains, you find that he is all you need. When your life is joined to his sacrifice, your source of strength is no longer external. It is internal, eternal, unshakable. To live from the sacrifice is to live from a place of constant remembrance. Just as Israel was commanded to remember the Passover, so too you must remember the price paid for your soul. But this remembrance is not nostalgic. It is empowering. Every time you remember the cross, the fire is rekindled. You remember that grace is not cheap. You remember that holiness matters. You remember that love was not just spoken, it was demonstrated. And the more you remember, the more your life becomes aligned with the heart of the Savior. You begin to reflect his nature, not through striving, but through abiding in his sacrifice. When you live joined to his sacrifice, you also begin to see others differently. You no longer look at people through the lens of flesh and blood, race or class, background or behavior. You see them through the blood redeemable, lovable, worth dying for. You see your enemies not as threats, but as captives in need of rescue. You find yourself praying for those who hurt you, forgiving those who betray you, loving those who reject you. Why? Because that's what he did. And when his sacrifice lives in you, his love flows through you. This life of sacrificial union also awakens the power of resurrection in your daily walk. For if you have been united with him in his death, surely you will be united with him in his life. You begin to walk not only in suffering, but in authority. Not only in humility, but in boldness. You begin to speak the truth, not as a sword of judgment, but as a balm of hope. You carry the fragrance of heaven into the streets of earth, and your life becomes a message not of religion, but of redemption, not of effort, but of encounter, not of law, but of love. In joining your life to Christ's sacrifice, you don't lose your life. You finally find it. You don't fall into despair. You rise into destiny. The cross that once looked like the end becomes the beginning of a life that cannot be shaken, a joy that cannot be stolen, and a peace that surpasses understanding. It is there, at the place of surrender, that eternity breaks into time, and heaven takes residence within a yielded heart. To join your life to Christ's sacrifice is to enter into a covenant that reshapes the way you live every single day. It is not a one-time emotional moment or a religious ritual. It is a daily surrender to the one who gave everything. The cross is not only the place where Jesus died, it is the place where your old self must continually die. In a world that glorifies self, promotes ego, and celebrates independence, the way of the cross calls you to crucify your pride, your desires, and your control. You no longer live for yourself. You live for the one who died and rose again. The Apostle Paul declared, "I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me." This is not poetic imagery. This is the divine blueprint for a believer's life. It means your ambitions are no longer yours to chase. They are surrendered to his will. Your plans are no longer your compass. They are submitted to his purpose. Your reputation is no longer yours to defend. It is offered on the altar of obedience. And in that daily death, something greater is born: resurrection power, divine direction, eternal impact. When your life is joined to Christ's sacrifice, it means your suffering is no longer wasted. The pain you walk through is not random. It is redemptive. The trials are not meaningless, they are refining. The losses are not the end, they are part of the transformation. Jesus turned the most horrific moment in history, the crucifixion, into the greatest victory. And when you align your life with that sacrifice, He begins to do the same with your wounds. Your scars become testimonies. Your failures become foundations. Your darkness becomes the canvas for His light. But joining your life to His sacrifice also means embracing the cost. The cross is free, but it is not cheap. Salvation is a gift, but discipleship will cost you everything. Jesus said, "If anyone wants to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me." That is not a suggestion, it is a command. It means there will be moments when you must walk away from comfort, from compromise, even from the crowd. It means saying no to the desires of the flesh so you can say yes to the call of the Spirit. It means turning down the applause of man to gain the approval of heaven. The call of the cross is not always popular. It may isolate you. It may cost you relationships. It may make you look like a fool to the world. But in the economy of heaven, obedience is the highest currency. When you walk in the shadow of the cross, you carry a different authority. You speak with a different voice. You live with a different fire because you are not living for this world. You are living for the world to come. You are not bound by time. You are anchored in eternity. This kind of life requires a different perspective. You must stop asking, "What do I want out of life?" and begin asking, "What does Christ want out of my life?" You stop chasing blessings and start becoming a blessing. You stop measuring success by the standards of men and start measuring it by faithfulness to the cross. You start to live for one thing only, to glorify the one who gave everything for you. And in doing so, you find something the world cannot give: peace in the storm, joy in the battle, purpose in the pain, and hope that does not disappoint. The cross is the great paradox. Death leads to life. Loss leads to gain. Surrender leads to victory. And when you join your life to Christ's sacrifice, you do not diminish, you shine. You do not fall, you rise. For it is no longer you who live, but Christ who lives in you. And that is the secret to living a life that echoes into eternity. When you join your life to Christ's sacrifice, you enter into the mystery of divine love, a love so deep, so holy, that it chose nails and thorns, rejection and death in order to redeem your soul. This is not love as the world knows it. This is not sentiment, not emotion, not fleeting affection. This is covenant love, sacrificial, unyielding, eternal. And when that love invades your life, it transforms not just what you believe, but who you are. You cannot encounter such a love and remain the same. It awakens you, it breaks you, and then it rebuilds you into the likeness of the one who bore your cross. To live joined to His sacrifice is to be rooted in love that surpasses understanding. It means that your identity is no longer based on what others say about you, what you've achieved, or where you've failed. It is based on the fact that the King of the universe chose to lay down His life for you, not because you earned it, not because you were worthy, but because He loved you before you even took your first breath. When you walk in this love, you begin to love differently. You forgive what others would hold on to. You bless those who curse you. You serve when no one notices. Because you're not operating from your own strength. You're living from the overflow of the cross. This love becomes the power behind your obedience. You no longer follow Christ because of obligation, but because of devotion. You are not motivated by fear, but by affection. Just as Christ loved you and gave himself up for you, so you begin to give yourself up for him. You surrender your comfort for his calling. You give up your will to embrace his. Your yes to him becomes more than words. It becomes your worship. And in that worship, your life becomes an offering, a fragrant aroma rising before the throne of God. Such love transforms how you see others. You begin to see through the eyes of the one who died for them. You see the broken not as burdens, but as opportunities for mercy. You see your enemies not as threats, but as souls in need of redemption. You see the lost not as hopeless, but as future testimonies of grace. When you are joined to Christ's sacrifice, you become a vessel through which that same love can reach the world. You do not just receive the cross, you become a living extension of it. You carry its message, you embody its power. You walk in its love. This love also becomes your anchor in the storms of life. When everything around you shakes, when loss pierces your heart, when questions go unanswered, this love holds you. Because it was forged in the fire of suffering, it understands pain. It does not abandon you in the darkness. It walks with you through the valley of the shadow. The one who bled for you will never leave you. And because you are joined to his sacrifice, your suffering is never pointless. It is woven into his greater plan. Every tear is counted. Every wound is seen. And one day, all of it will be redeemed in glory. To live in the love of the cross is to live in the fullness of God's heart. It is to be emptied of self and filled with him. It is to be poured out so others might be filled. It is to walk in a power that the world cannot understand because it is not of this world. It is the love that overcomes death, that breaks every chain, that conquers every fear. And it is yours not because you earned it, but because you received it. And now you are called to live it. To be the hands of Christ, the voice of compassion, the heart of mercy. When your life is joined to his sacrifice, you become not just a believer. You become a living testament of the love that saved the world.